join with.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Center Society. My name is Andres Watau, and I'm one of the facilitators at the Center for Civil Society. Today is exciting. We're speaking with colleagues from Right2Know, where they are celebrating the 30th anniversary, and they'll be sharing on the progress that they've made. Today, we have Burton as a speaker, and this is just the reflections on the 30 years of democracy in South Africa. The seminar, a little about Burton. Burton serves on the Right2Know National Working Group and has also served as a provincial action group convener for participatory democracy. He's an educator based in Marienberg, Durban. Burton, welcome to the webinar. And I'll give you around 30 minutes for you to speak. Then we'll be facilitating. Then over to you.
Okay, thank you, Andres, for this nice introduction. Nice to hear from you, Burton. I think we've collaborated, in this shrinking space project in the last 2 years. It's good to hear from you. I'll just give you like 30 minutes, to reflect on the journey thus far, 30 years into our democracy, since 94 now to 2024. And then we'll have a question and answer session where maybe you respond to some of the questions that were raised or that are raised by people in the audience. For those who do not know me, my name is Denfo Chifongotse. I'm a research fellow based at the Center for Civil Society. Right, over to you, Burton.
Thank you, Denfo.
So much for
thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you to Andres as well for that introduction. I'm really excited to be with all of you today, and greetings to the Center for Civil Society and to the university community at large. So when we look at 30 years of democracy, there's many issues that are raised and many questions that are asked. As Right2Know, we've been working in the civic space. Right2Know has collaborated and worked in solidarity with many organizations over the years. Right2Know empowers all people to participate in democracy actively and effectively so that they can defend and advance their political, social, economic, and environmental rights. So all these spheres of rights are equally important. At different phases in people's lives, some may be more important than others. The Right2Know campaign is a non-profit advocacy organization established in 2010 to reduce state secrecy in drafting laws, to classify information it deemed not in the interest of the public domain. So some of you may recall in 2010, the government of the day drafted legislation which gave it free rein to classify information it felt was not in the interest of the public. This would have given it the opportunity to classify information about the work that the government of the day was doing. As a result, the public at large would not have access to this information and would not have known about the plans of government. So this was very scary, and it was a very dangerous time that we are living in, because if the state and the government of the day was able to pass this legislation, there were many things that could have happened in our country that we would not be known about, or we would not known about. Unfortunately, this led to the formation of Right to Know, people that held South Africa in high esteem, activists across the country, came together and protested against the secrecy bill. And R2K took to the streets, mobilized the masses, and even went to court to stop the secrecy bill. So this gave birth to R2K and the work that R2K has done since then. So R2K is involved in empowering communities in terms of how to access information with regards to the work done by municipalities, by provincial governments, and by national governments. Communities you will find when you go down to the very grassroots level, the majority of community members are not very familiar with policies and legislation. They find it difficult to take up the issues in a very peaceful and a very official and formal way. And you would find that because they don't have this opportunity, their frustration builds up, and therefore you would find sometimes their frustration leads to violence. And we see it across the country when people are protesting on the highways, in the townships, in the suburbs. Tires are being burnt, rocks are being put across the road to disrupt the normal flow of traffic, because all they are asking for is the attention of municipalities and local government to listen to their plight and to the issues, and to take up the problems and address the problems that they have. So Right to Know goes into communities and does training sessions and workshops on issues with regards to water, electricity, housing, and all sorts of matters that communities find that are important to them. And in capacitating communities and community leaders, we find that this growth leads to a better interaction between community members and the local municipalities and government. So what I can say is that Right to Know is helping to foster a peaceful and an effective democracy across the provinces where we work. We work in the Eastern Cape, in the Western Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, and in Gauteng. And we are hoping to spread our wings to other provinces, depending on capacity and funding. Over the years, since 2010, Right to Know has engaged with legislation such as the Promotion of Access to Information Act of 2001 to twist the arm of the state to declare information that is of public interest. For example, Right to Know has asked the state to release the names of those who infiltrated NGOs and NPOs and civic organizations. So when the task team came out with this report, it declared that the state had spies in civic organizations, trying to undermine the work of civic organizations, NGOs, and NPOs. However, the state did not release the names of those spies. So up to this very day, we are still engaging with the state to release those names, so we know who amongst us are going against the agenda of civic organizations and Right to Know. Also, the Right to Know campaign requested the full and complete report on the Morana Commission, which looked into the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Most of you that are in on this seminar today will be familiar with the political killings taking place, and that took place in KwaZulu-Natal, especially in the hostels. And these were very well orchestrated and well organized events to take out anyone who was in opposition to certain politicians' agendas. And we were able to get the full and complete report from the state with regards to this commission. In terms of advancing democracy, we have also engaged in a program which is called Pali Watch, where we go into parliamentary institutions and listen in on the work of the subcommittees and listening on the politicians at work. And thereafter, we form our own reports and we give feedback. So in this way, we are holding politicians accountable for the work that they have been elected to do. We have also engaged in voter education during our local government elections and national elections, and inform people of what the rights are and how the system works, and obviously being very careful not to influence them in who they should vote for. But it's just a matter of what the system is like and what they're entitled to do and what are the documents they require when they go to the voting station. Participatory democracy is one of Right2Know's main focus areas. And this gives us the opportunity to be actively involved in platforms, in programs, and in encouraging people to be to take part in our democracy at various levels. Many of our people are disillusioned concerning our democracy. If you look at the outcomes and the results and the kind of conditions we're living at today. But it is important to note that the vote that they have is also the power that they have. It is their strength. It is constitutionally mandated that every citizen who fulfills the requirement to vote should exercise their vote, and freely and fairly. We've done training of observers, and this was facilitated by the IEC during election, so that our activists from Right2Know can go and observe these elections, can monitor the elections to ensure that voting stations are properly set up, that people are treated with dignity and respect and are not being intimidated, and reports are then given in to the IEC. During COVID, during the lockdown period, we were also trained by the South African Human Rights Commission to serve as monitors, and we were given permits where we were able to go out there into various areas to look at the lockdown conditions, the regulations. Are the state security enforcing it correctly? Are people being abused? Were there any violations by civilians in terms of lockdown regulations? And so this gave us a very good insight in terms of how people had to live during the lockdown and during the COVID. Right2Know also encourages the right to protest when there are burning issues. And we find that all types of engagement with the state have failed. Therefore, we mobilize activists across NGOs and civic organizations, and we apply for Section 4 permission according to the Regulations of Gathering Act. And we've engaged in protest action. But what we find is a hindrance is the cost to protest. All different municipalities, they charge different amounts. So these are some of the things that restrict the right to protest. There's also surveillance and security of civic organizations and those who may be speaking against the state. Surveillance cameras are all over the cities, suburbs, and you find that activists are being tracked, are being monitored. And this does not bode well for our democracy, because it means that freedom of speech, freedom of mobilization, freedom of assembly is being restricted. In terms of the pillars of democracy, which is the rule of law, we are being seriously challenged in our country. This is undermining our democracy. You will find in many areas, in the townships, the rule of law is absent. The enforcement of law is absent. Crime is at such a high level that people feel trapped in their very homes that they live in. And there's horrendous crimes that are taking place. The state police, the national instruction is 1, visible policing, and 2 is the prevention of crime. And I think on both accounts, the state has failed to ensure that there's visible policing and there's prevention of crime. The lack of resources. If you have one van, for example, in a suburb or in a township to 600 people, an area that is many, many kilometers apart, it is almost impossible to ensure that there's prevention of crime, because that van cannot be at so many different places at once. So it is severely restricted in doing the work. We've had many elections over the years, and international observers have stated that it's free and fair. But some of us who have taken part in these elections may think otherwise. The finding of empty ballot papers and boxes dumped in a river or under a bridge, and the manner in which people are turned away from voting stations, sometimes it's questionable. The demarcation of areas where people can vote changes all the time. And sometimes you wonder whether it's done just for a specific political party. Equality before the law in our democracy is questionable, because politicians seem to have the upper hand. They're more equal before the law than we are, the ordinary citizens. They are treated far better than we are. Up to today, I am not aware of a very senior politician that has been jailed for the crimes that he or she has undertaken. And the restriction of NGO and civic space is shrinking. As Danford has said earlier on, this space is shrinking, and we are being monitored, and we are being watched constantly. And this is turning into a state where our freedoms are being taken away. And this is not the democracy that we fought for. Service delivery issues is the main thing that tells the story of our people. In terms of how the living conditions of people, it seems like have worsened. Yes, with the advent of democracy, there were some positives. We got one national education system, whereas we had 4 previously. We have all learners, irrespective of race, can go to any school they want to. We are able to go to utilities and facilities, irrespective of race. Those are the positives. But we expected more, that our people will be living better off today than they were 30 years. But if you go around, you will see the issues of sewage. People are living with sewage flowing in front of the houses, even in the yards. There's such an increase in water tankers. Tankers supplying water to people. People have to come out with their buckets. This is not the democracy that we fought for. There should be water in every tap in everyone's home. There should be a home for all our citizens, not the mushrooming of shacks and informal settlements around the cities and in cities. Our people are living in dangerous conditions. And this is because the state has failed to build good quality houses in the interest of people, to provide water, to provide electricity. We have unstable electricity supply. We have unstable water supply. The water tanker mafias have taken over. It is a profit to those who own water tankers when they're supplying water to our communities. If there's a stable water supply daily, there will be no need for water. So there's also sabotage of water pipe valves, of the piping system. So when there's a breakage in the supply of water, then the tankers come in. So these are the type of things that people are really, really frustrated with. The sewage issue is such a huge issue. It's because of aging infrastructure. And the state has failed to maintain this infrastructure. And some of the reasons is because municipalities don't have the funds. The funds are used up in a corrupt way. Corrupt politicians, corrupt municipal officials. And there are many cases that are before the court of corruption by politicians and by municipal officials. So instead of the money being used for the right reasons, it's been taken away from our people. And it is difficult to know when this will be reduced or even stopped, because when I look across all political parties, it is just different people saying the same things. So which political parties can we really trust? And with crime being so ripe in our communities, there's been an increase in vigilantism. And there's also been an increase in the growth of the private security companies, which has filled the gap of the South African police service. So there's been an absence of state security, and this was evident during the July 2021 riots, where communities took up arms to defend themselves against a threat that came about because of political expediency and political opportunism. Those that were behind the July 2021 riots have still not been arrested and convicted. But there was great feeling that politicians were behind it. And our poor people were caught up in this and obviously took the opportunity to go and loot the shops, companies, and burn down those businesses. And many of them who took part in these activities, they themselves lost their jobs. And as a result, are today unemployed. So this kind of society that we live in today, the democracy that we have shaped today, is something that is holding on to a very fine thread. There's unemployment, there's hunger, there's crime, there's frustration with the systems, and this can all boil out into civil disobedience. It is important for the rightful leaders in our country to stand up and to keep fighting the wrongs in our country and to keep speaking out against the wrongs in our country. Because the ruling party as it stands is falling apart. The ANC that we knew 30 years ago has now broken up into COPE, EFF, and now MK. So slowly but surely, it's being fragmentalized. And the opposition parties that have now come in, there are many of them, are unable to win this majority support of South Africans. And as a result, you find coalitions that are coming up now. And for me, one of the concerns is that whilst we say this is a robust democracy and it allows many political parties to take part in elections, we find that the horse trading that's going to take place after elections are completed is the parties that will put themselves first and their leaders first, rather than the people that they that voted for them. The horse trading will start. And how stable will those coalitions be to be able to govern at municipal level, provincial level, and at national level? That is a serious question that we need to look at. I thank you, Danford, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Burton, for giving us an extensive appraisal of South Africa's democratic process in the last 30 years. I must mention that I think there are a lot of negatives as compared to the positives. I mean, I was just typing down what the negatives that you were discussing here. And I mean, there are other that are missing. That shows how bad the situation has been for, post-colonial in African governments. You did not mention Marikana. You didn't mention some of crises that really rocked up South Africa. But let me just give the platform to the audience. I see Shona, your hand is up. Maybe if you've got a question, and I see also Prof. Mtapuri, you can contribute after Shona, and then I'll take more rounds of questions. Thank you. Thank you, Burton.
Thanks so much, Danford. Burton, thank you very much. That was really interesting. We have never met. I just sort of know you indirectly through Danford. I'm Shona Motia, and I direct the Center for Civil Society. And I've had long and interesting engagements with R2K. So I think that you are one of the most critical social movements in our country. So thank you for all your great work and dedication. So I have so many questions, but I'm going to restrict them to two. I don't want to get into trouble with Danford and Andres for dominating the platform. My first question has to do with, I'm very interested to understand some of the nuances of the way the Gatherings Act is misinterpreted and misapplied, because I think that's one of the ways that protest has been put down and the right to protest is being curtailed. And the second question I have for you is, all of this increased surveillance and what Jane Duncan has called, she's got a term for it, which has slipped out of my mind, and I'll remember it shortly. Do you think that represents a democratic backslide for our country in particular, or do you think that's just a global trend? I mean, if you travel in the so-called developed nations, you're on camera all the time, for example, right? You apply for the visa, everything about you is recorded. These days, when you search for something on Google on your phone, you can see that it's being noted somehow because adverts that appear 2 minutes after that are in relation to what you search. So I'm saying, can we really say that sort of repression of rights is indication that our democracy is backsliding, or is it some kind of global trend to kind of increase control over citizens and manage citizenship, if you like? Yes, thank you very much.
Can I go, Danford?
Yes, you can go, Prof. Mtapuri.
Thank you,
And then
thank you.
we can have Burton responding to the questions.
Okay, thank you, Burton. It's very good, overview of what you guys are doing and doing very good work. But I just wanted to know from your side, what are the communities saying about this? I see inequalities increasing. So what are the communities saying about that? Thank you.
Burton, over to you if you can respond to the questions.
Yes, thank you, Danford, and thank you to Shona and Prof for those questions. I think Shona came up with the question of the Gatherings Act and the restrictions. So what the state does with the Section 4 meeting is that they will try at every opportunity to restrict the movement of activists, try to obviously find reasons to prevent a protest from taking place. If you have been out there protesting, and if you are protesting, for example, about service delivery, you'd be amazed at the number of state vehicles that are out there monitoring, videoing, surveilling, and you would think, where did all these resources come from? When there is actually a crisis out there and there is violence, etc., you won't find these vehicles or these state resources. But when there is a peaceful protest, you would find these resources. So the state uses the Section 4 meeting to intimidate activists, to also prevent the protest from taking place. The cost factor as well. You would find in different municipalities, the cost varies. I'm not sure why. From one municipality to the next, it would vary. What we are finding more and more is the Section 4 meetings. When you go into these meetings, Metro Police, SAPS, the state security will always outnumber the number of activists that are invited to these meetings. So it's very intimidating. We should always be promoting peaceful protests. This is a way for ordinary citizens to vent their frustration in a very peaceful way when everything else fails. So the Gatherings Act is something that we are continuously looking at and we are trying to review. And it's something that is high on our agenda. To your second question, Shona, in terms of surveillance, locally, nationally, and globally, surveillance is there. And you asked whether it's a backslide in terms of our democracy. I would think it would be if it intensifies, if it continues to intensify. There is a South African police service device called a grabber that is used to surveil people's cell phones within a certain radius. So if you are sitting at home or you're in a meeting, your cell phone can be surveilled and all the information, the calls, the messages, and everything about yourself that's on that cell phone, that information can go to SAPS if they are monitoring you and they are targeting you. I think already it's been done. It possibly could be worse off in other countries which are far more technologically advanced than South Africa is. And artificial intelligence is something that is being used more and more. I think everything about ourselves is now being controlled and monitored. So it is dangerous if it's abused. There may be instances where surveillance and security measures can be taken to prevent terrorist attacks and to prevent any harm that could come to ordinary citizens. But when it's used to target activists who are taking up issues against the state, then that is repression. That is suppression of our right to freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. Yeah, so I'll stop there in terms of Shona's question. In terms of Professor's question, what are communities saying? Communities are really frustrated. If you go down to where I stay, to Inanda in KwaZulu-Natal, near Durban, if you go down to Umtwalume, communities are up in arms. And for me, one of the striking things in terms of gender is that you would find women are more marginalized, are far more marginalized. Women have, in the most cases, being responsible for the homes in terms of the children, in terms of the livelihood of the family, in terms of income. Women are going out there and trying to sell vegetables, fruits, at a very basic level to get some funds, to put food on the table. Sometimes you'll find they're absent fathers. And in the communities, it's women who are leading also in terms of the issues that are affecting communities, the sewage issues, the lack of housing, the lack of proper roads, sanitation, water, unemployment. So communities are frustrated. And they would say that in the 30 years of democracy that they've been living in, not much has changed. How can it have changed in a positive way? If a family is living on the shack on the side of a highway where there's cars and trucks and all buzzing past them, how can we say that this democracy has helped me? So communities are constantly protesting, barricading the roads to try to get the attention of councillors. The other big issue is the issue of the councillor. We cannot recall councillors. There's no legislation there to recall councillors. Councillors are loyal to political parties. It is a political party that appoints councillors and take back councillors. It's not the community. And the councillor, in most cases, doesn't even live in that community. He lives somewhere else. And is being forced upon this community. And they are absent most of the time. So they're not serving the community in terms of the issues that they have. So communities are feeling abandoned. They feel that the state has abandoned them, that they are on their own. And they have to take care of themselves. So, Prof, I hope that has answered your question. Thank you, Danford.
Thank you, Burton.
Thank you. I'm happy. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone? I think I've got a question for you. Yeah, one of R2K's main objectives is that of lobbying against the secrecy of information. That is one of the major aims, to call for a transparent society. But I just want to know, since it was formed, R2K, how have you navigated maybe the introduction of laws that promotes the protection of personal information, such as the POPI Act? Maybe if you want the state to sort of give you the names of those that have infiltrated your organization, and but the same state is bound by the POPI Act. How do you navigate that if you need that personal information? Thank you.
Thank you, Danford. Yes, so it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle to get access to the information. It's a matter of going to court. It's a matter of putting pressure on the state by also getting in touch with other organizations that deals specifically with these matters. We have lobbied civil society that have been affected by those that have infiltrated civic organizations to try to band together to put pressure on the state. We've written to the Premier, we've written to the President's office in terms of trying to get access to this information. But when this is done, in most cases, there's no response. So we have tried different strategies in terms of trying to put pressure on the state. And we have taken the resolution that we will continue to put pressure on the state to try to release those names, because up to now, we are not absolutely sure who those infiltrators are. And what this does, it creates uneasiness sometimes, where there's a trust deficit, there's a trust issue that comes up. The state organs can be very, very cold and unresponsive. And it's a matter of us exposing this issue, constantly putting it on the table, and taking it up in a legal sense as well, going to court. But it's a long struggle. We know that the state will protect those who have infiltrated civic organizations, and it would be something that they would not want to give up very easily. So it's going to be a hard-fought struggle. Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Burton, for that response. I will take Ben, and then Shona is asked to contribute once more. So after Ben, Shona, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Burton, and thank you, Danford, for the opportunity. I want to get your comment, Comrade Burton, around what is happening in eThekwini specifically with regards to the increase of the tariffs around water and electricity. As you are aware that the ratepayers that we have currently that are known is Bluff, Westville, and Chatsworth. They have consistently opposed the increase of the rates, and the municipality has forged ahead and increased the rates. I think in the last month, full council meeting, they forged ahead and increased the rates. And then what is your take on that? Because I'm aware that because some of the people that in those organizations, they talked to us that there was no proper consultation. What is your take on that moving forward as we engage around the 30 years of democracy? And then these things are happening in front of our eyes, and now then nothing is done about them. Thank you. That is my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Shona, if you can come in.
Thanks so much, Dan. Burton, this is more of a technical question. I'm just wondering about these private security companies, and I'm wondering, like, constitutionally, what sort of privileges and rights do they have? Because, the police force has certain jurisdiction or power, if you like, or legitimacy, but a private security company, not so much. I'm just wondering if there's a lot of arbitrary securitization and if that is unconstitutional. Thanks.
Thank you, Shona. Burton, if you can respond to the questions.
Yes, thank you, Danford. Yes, thank you, Ben and Shona. Ben refers to the eThekwini, the rates and the tariff increases. So the eThekwini municipality, in spite of not providing effective and sufficient services to our people still feel that they need to increase the tariffs. And for us, one of the reasons they do this is the form of revenue. They are cash strapped. They don't have the funds due to mismanagement of funds, due to corruption. So they need to raise funds in some way so that they can stay afloat. And unfortunately, what they do is they punish those that have been paying the tariffs and been paying the rates and paying for services. So those that have been paying are burdened once again with the increases. The irony is that if you're not getting stable water supply, if you're not getting stable electricity, yet you are being taxed. You have to pay a higher tariff. So across eThekwini, civil society, civic organizations for the last few months, and even in 2023, have taken to the streets to protest against this tariff increase. The people in eThekwini are saying there should be 0% increases. How can you increase the tariffs if you're not even providing proper services? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. So people have galvanized support. They've signed petitions. They've engaged with the municipality in meetings. There's organizations such as the Westville Ratepayers Association that has joined now with the Bluff Ratepayers Association and the Merebank Ratepayers Association. They have set up meetings with the municipality, with the mayor. But what they found mainly is when they go to these meetings, it's just a talk shop. Ordinary people air their views and their frustrations, and promises are made to them that things will be sorted out in a week's time, in a month's time, and so on. But it does not get done. People have also seriously thought about a rates boycott, withholding rates, and there's a lot of legal implications there. It's something that has looked at carefully from a legal point of view, I would think, before engaging in it, because we can all talk as a collective and say, yes, we're going to hold our rates. But what the municipality will do is they will send letters, legal letters to individual residents. And once that letters comes to those individual residents, then you will find this collective that was there will start breaking up because of the penalties, etc. So the tariff increases, as far as I believe, in my opinion, and what R2K believe, there should be 0% increases to any of the tariffs. We first need to get effective and proper services for people in the eThekwini before we can even talk about and look at increases. Coming to Shona's point about private security, yes, has taken to a large extent and filled the gap of SAPs, because SAPs don't have enough personnel, they don't have enough vans to take care of, for example, 600-700 people in the community. So people have now engaged the service of private security. They're paying a monthly installment. They get patrol vehicles coming that circulate in the community, or they have armed response. They have the alarms being monitored, etc. But in terms of the rules and regulations of private security, you will find private security are mainly there just to stand off. They cannot go and arrest private citizens. You will always find private security will be there at the scene before SAPs, but they will always call SAPs to come and deal with the criminal activity. I would think private security is mainly there for prevention, to be seen, to be visible. But in terms of regulation, in terms of how crime is dealt with, it's a responsibility of SAPs. So there's a fine line. In 2021, when the unrest took place, the private security companies that were shooting at citizens. And those private security company employees ended up in prison, and some of them have been convicted. So we need to be very careful on how we use private security to ensure that they don't abuse their role in society and in crime prevention. Thank you.
Thank you, Burton. I've got one more question. It was sent privately. Thanks, Burton. It sounds South Africa is becoming more unstable politically. You have mentioned that civil society is shrinking. Will this not endanger democracy more? Have you, as R2K, put plans not to shrink? Is 30 years you should be stronger? And he puts a question mark, of course. Does the end of ANC mean the end of civil society as well? The next 30 years sounds scary. You can respond to that, and then I'll just hand over to Andries to close this session. Thank you so much, Burton.
Thank you, Danford. Yes, there's a lot in that question. In terms of civil society and the space that we occupy, we find that, yes, the space is shrinking. The state is becoming more oppressive, as I mentioned previously, with surveillance and the regulations that are being passed to prevent protests, pickets, the monitoring of activists. Also, you will find that the attack on journalists. This makes it very difficult for us as a right to know to do our work. But it strengthens our resolve in that we believe that what we are doing is in the interest of our country and in the interest of our democracy and of putting our people first. This is what it's all about, our citizens. And active citizenry is very, very important. We cannot have citizens being passive and not taking up issues that affect their daily lives. The state is becoming more desperate, more especially the ruling party, the ANC, because it is losing power rapidly. And in doing so, it is going to do anything to try to hold on to that power. And that recording, that audio recording of our state president in a meeting, talking about the media and not allowing negative stories to come out, and that was behind the scenes. So in public, all the right things will be said, but in private, you will find that the ANC, by that very audio, is scared. They want to create a very positive picture of the country for us to forget what we are going through. So if there's an attack on the media, if there's restriction of the media is there to bring out the stories that we don't hear about daily on TV, in the radio, in the print media. So I think that this coalition politics that is coming about, I don't think it is going to be very good for our country, because political parties, each one of them is going to fight for their own lot, and the citizens are going to be forgotten, and we're going to be put on the back burner. So it'll be the party first and the citizen second. And when this happens, because political parties want power, and with power comes resources, they have their hands on the purse. And in having their hands on the purse, they will be able to allocate resources for their own benefit. It will be ideal if these resources are used for the right reasons, for schools, clinics, for roads, for bridges, for infrastructure. However, politicians seem to just be so excited about these millions and billions of rands that they are able to decide on how to be used, that they forget it's supposed to be used for the citizens. So our 30 years of democracy, whilst I believe that there have been some positives in our country, I do not believe that we are far better now than we were before. I am actually very disillusioned, disappointed on this dream that we had. I really believed that we had the wealth, we had the money, that we had the labor force, that we had the resources, we have the skills, we had the experts, the professionals to have taken our country to a level where we have a high standard of level, high quality of education, and where we have infrastructure that was world class, that we had SOEs that serves the people. So I honestly believe that it is difficult for our people that they are living in now. And unfortunately, I believe it may get worse. And Right2Know will continue being involved with communities, empowering communities, capacitating communities to take up their struggles so that they may, at the end of the day, find some victory in those struggles. I thank you, Danford.
Thank you so much, Burton. Thanks to
No,
everyone
thank you
who
very much,
joined.
Burton. No, thanks to you too, Dan. Burton, I think it's very important that your role as Right2Know and other civil movements is much more critical now than ever before, because there's many of people, especially in South Africa, that are reliant on you to be the voices for them. Let's hope that this is a turning point for South Africa. But with the elections coming, that it will then become a much more better country, as we had hoped for it to be. Having said that, I'd like to thank you, Burton, for the time that you've taken to come give us the insights and for answering all the questions that were asked. And then also I'd like to thank Dan for the facilitation today and everyone that has joined today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Burton. That was really interesting.
Thank you, Danford. Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Shona. It was amazing to be with you guys and to share my thoughts, and looking forward to more engagements with you all. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Everyone, please join us for the rest of the seminars in this series. We're going to be engaging with other social movements as well to talk about their reflections on 30 years of democracy. So please join us again. You're all on the mailing list, so you'll receive notices. Thank you to Ben and Danford and Andres, and thanks, Simo, for organizing in the background.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben, once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Ben.
Bye.